Bex rehashed Kova's new filing. I'm late. Need cliff notes. Um, Roza basically said, hey, they lied in their filing. This sticker has not been deleted. They can be sued because they have two roles. One is as a regulator, the other as a market participant. And we've got to see if these two things conflicted. And it was pretty straightforward. I think it kind of hit it home really hard. So it was good. That's short, sweet, to the point. Pointed out how the court has ruled in these cases that they should have to show their accounting anyway to decide if this is an instance where it can be dismissed or not. And it can't be dismissed simply because she was able to show she was injured, and they haven't been able to show that she isn't injured. So it's a good, quick, to the point filing. It's a good job. Herman Hartner, trusting in CEO block, MMTLP, CRTD, GTII, spearing the fight against naked shorts. Roza and Wes, this share intel will help a lot also. Let's get that discovery, or let's trade in for a free-for-all. And trade in a free-for-all. I'm going to try and get some of the CEO block guys on the show and sort of discuss their ideas for how they're going to go about battling these short sellers. I mean, a lot of them are listing these law firms and they're suing. I haven't really seen the named parties yet in a lot of these lawsuits. They've said, a lot of them said we're investigating a potential lawsuit, but they haven't named the parties yet that they would be suing. So I think they're identifying the specific short sellers that they're going to punish for this, and that's what they're getting to the bottom of. But it appears that a lot of these groups are hiring former FBI, former SEC, former FINRA, former FTC, former Treasury people, and they're getting these experts in there whose job it is to like enforce this stuff, or job had been to enforce this stuff, to be sort of give them like an inside scoop, like a little, hey, you know what I mean? And I think that's a really good strategy. Yeah. Dan Sanchez, hey bud, wouldn't it be easier if Torch just sold the assets? If we have fakes, shorts still have to pay out to divvy. Yeah, I mean, they could sell the assets. The problem is that if the shares are going to trade some more, they can't strike a deal for those assets. So they're kind of in a weird limbo at the moment, waiting for these lawsuits to resolve before they can go forward with selling what they need to sell. So it puts everybody in a weird spot that all these shorts exist. Now, if they do sell the assets, there's going to be a hell of a PIL that the shorts will be responsible for, to the tune of billions that they don't have. Either way, the shorts are screwed. And that's where it is. And they're trying desperately to keep themselves from being screwed however they can. Justin Whaler, Houston, have you heard anything about brokers not registering in book entry form and say the AST will be mailing certificates? Every broker has said something differently. A lot of them say, we're just waiting for AST delivered certificates. And you talk to AST and they say, well, deliver them to DTCC. And you talk to the DTC and they say, we've delivered them. And you talk to the brokers, say, we're waiting for the DTC. And then you say the DTC has said they delivered them. They go, yeah, we got them delivered. They're in your account. You say, what's this in my account? It's not an expert share. They go, actually, it's a placeholder for an expert share. But if you want to transfer, it's going to cost you this much money. Then you say in the S1, it's not supposed to cost any money to do the transfer. And AST says it doesn't cost any money to do the transfer. And they go, we'll transfer for free. You say, okay, cool. Then transfer them. And they go, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks to transfer. And then they say they transferred it. And you call AST and they say, actually, they didn't send us any shares. They sent us warrants. And those are not shares. So it's a big cluster all the way around for this. They don't know how to give people their shares because there's too many people. It's like, it's like Jesus and the fish, right? He's got 5 loaves of bread and 7 fish or whatever, and he's got to feed a crowd of 3,000. And how does he magically feed this crowd of 3,000. He uses his magic powers to make more bread and fish, and is able to extend it that way as the story goes. In this case, they made a whole bunch of fake shares, and now the real shares came along and they went, oh no, we can't make fake ones of these. How are we going to distribute all this? We've got a crowd of 3,000. We got to feed with 5 shares, and those 5 shares can go to 5 people, but then we've got 2,995 people who are going to murder us for not giving them their shares. It's a mess. It's a mess. Daphne Houston, can you share your honest opinion at this point? How do you feel MMTLP will be resolved? I mean, there's the two ways. The two ways it gets resolved. One is this takes forever, and they end up selling the assets to somebody, and there's a big cash check coming. They just divvy it out, done, and all of your shares that you had turn into cash, and that's that. And all the short hedge funds have to do payments in lieu of the same amount to whatever counterfeit they created as a placeholder. Or two, these lawsuits are successful. They cave. They do 2 more days of trading of the MMTLP ticker to close out as many shares as possible, and then everyone who wants it gets their shares, and that's over. Those are the only 2 ways it could be done. I don't see how else. I'm sure there could be like a SEC and the FTC can step in and do some sort of negotiation, and say, okay, this is gonna be a price. You can either accept it or don't. And there you go. But for the most part, I think one of those first 2 options is how it gets resolved. This exactly. Hey, I found you. I found you, Lucy. Okay. Cabo, has anyone confirmed they have their shares at AST yet, especially with overseas brokers who supposedly sent their clients shares early? There's been a couple who've confirmed they have their shares. And then there's been a whole bunch who have tried and can't, or warrants got sent to AST instead of shares. And AST is like, these aren't shares, these are just warrants for shares, which I think is a way that these guys are trying to get around it, because they got this one giant certificate, right? You got one sheet of paper to Fidelity that says this represents 20 million shares, and they go, oh shit, right? So they make a warrant, which is not what Fidelity should be doing, because a warrant should be produced by the issuer, which would be NextBridge. They produce some sort of weird warrant, a counterfeit warrant, I guess, and then they send that to AST saying this represents the shares, and AST goes, no, it doesn't. That seems to be what's happening. Herman Hartner. Half my MMTLP sit in TDA. The others are supposed to be being transferred to AST for a 1-for-1 with a deadline of February 17th for completion of the process, leaving myself open for a payday either way. Hey, there you go. Herman, get back to us on the 17th. When's the 17th? Like Friday next week? 17th is Friday next week. So Friday next week, I want you to check in and see if it actually transferred and went through. I would love to see. And if you call AST to make sure it went through, see if they sent real shares or if they sent warrants. I would love to know. Let me know. All of you who are transferring, let me know if and when it goes through, and if you can verify if they actually sent shares or if they sent warrants. That would be stupendous. It'd be like an informal. Even one other person gets a warrant, then they're screwing up, man. Roy Sport 67. How long do you think it will be before MMTLP makes a sale of their assets? I mean, I would have thought it would have been a year and a half ago. Right now, not a clue. Just zero clue. I don't know what the process is to try and find a buyer for oil fields like that. Do you just do you find a broker? Hey, can you put my oil fields up for sale? And the broker goes, yes, I'll list it at oilfields.com. Do you make an announcement into an oil field publication? Do you cold call Phillips Conoco and say, hey, buy this? And they go, buy what? Honestly, I don't know the process. I'm sure there's brokers out there who specialize in those things. It's not me though. Ben Lilo found it funny, turned on my stock lending on Webull, and you guessed it, they somehow managed to loan my shares and said Apex has the power to do that. Yeah. And who are they loaning them to? Like, nothing's being sold because there's no market. So why would you borrow those shares if there's no market to sell them? Makes no sense to me. Unless they're facing all sorts of weird things because they're T35s and like, well, at least we'll have some shares we can put in there and then just pay interest on it. It's weird. It's very weird.